Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Meanwhile, in the pirate enclave, all the big shots of the pirate world were now gathered in the conference room of the pirate enclave. Everyone present was the baddest, meanest, and strongest pirates of the seven seas, whose wanted posters could be seen all over the cities of the Ford Federation. Right now, these notorious pirates were looking at the map on the conference table with complicated looks on their faces. The reason? There were two giggling baby slimes playing catch the red ruby in the center of the table, oblivious to the heavy atmosphere in their surroundings. A man with red hair glanced at Captain Jack Spawwow, making the pirate captain smile bitterly. "Echo, Fei, darlings, playtime is now over," Captain Jack Spawwow said. "Behave, and I will play with you later." "Aye, Captain," Echo replied. "Yar," Fei answered. The two baby slimes then jumped off the table. After landing on Captain Jack Spawwow's shoulders, they curiously looked at the people around them. Seeing that the two troublemakers were now behaving, the red-haired pirate, who went by the name Spanx, cleared his throat to catch everyone's attention. "The battleships of the Ford Federation have gathered at the domain that was recently discovered," Spanx stated. "Our spies have reported that they were unable to break the barrier and enter the domain. I have every reason to believe that this hidden domain is the same place where the pirate king, Uncle Rogers, hid his treasures." A tense silence descended upon the room as they waited for Spanx to continue his explanation. "I have every reason to believe that located inside the domain is the lost city of El Dorado," Spanx said. "El Dorado?" Echo tilted her head. "Taco?" Fei blinked her eyes cutely. "No, darlings, Captain Jack Spawwow. It's El Dorado, the legendary Golden City. It is said to hold the most priceless ancient relics and treasures of the world." All the pirates looked at the two baby slimes before shifting their gaze to Captain Jack Spawwow. The pirate captain only chuckled after receiving the stares from his peers. However, if one were to pay close attention to his chuckle, one would realize that there was a hint of anxiety in it. Spanx cleared his throat once again, catching everyone's attention. Since they are unable to enter the domain, they will proceed to execute their main directive, which is to destroy the pirate enclave and kill as many pirates as they can, Spanx said. "Now, all of us are faced with two choices: fight or flee. There are no other options. There will be no parley, and there will be no negotiations. It is either we make our last stand, or we run away to fight another day. These are our two options. What is the decision of the pirate lords?" Everyone in the room pondered for a bit. This was a very serious situation, and they couldn't make any rash decisions. After several minutes passed, Manky D. Buffy spoke up. "If you don't take risks, you can't create a future," Manky D. Buffy said. "Let's fight." "Hey you, what are you fighting me for?" Baggy the pirate asked. "Trying to raise your reputation?" "I don't want to conquer anything," Manky D. Buffy replied. "I just think that the person with the most freedom in the seven seas will be the next pirate king." Everyone glanced at the pirate wearing a straw hat and nodded their heads in agreement. If they lost their freedom, they could kiss their goal of becoming the pirate king goodbye. However, not everyone shared their sentiments. If you all want to die, then go die." Baggy the pirate snorted. "I won't fight a battle that I have no chance of winning. Have you forgotten? They are sending us supreme. Not only that, their army outnumbers us 20 to 1. How can we possibly win?" "You won't know until we try," Manky D. Buffy insisted. "Then try alone," Baggy the pirate countered. "Don't drag us to this foolishness." Seeing the scene, Spanx sighed and clapped his hands together. "I understand both of your feelings," Spanx said. "As the temporary leader of the pirate enclave, I won't force anyone to fight if they don't want to. So, those who don't want to fight, leave this place as fast as you can. The Ford Federation will arrive in 2 days. Those who choose to remain, brace yourself to fight to the death. If we lose, this battle will be known as the Pirate Enclave's last stand." Spanx's message was clear. Those who want to fight till the bitter end, stay. Those who want to live, escape while you still can. The pirates exchanged glances with each other. However, a minute later, Baggy scoffed and left the conference room. Just like a domino effect, the pirates who didn't want to sacrifice their lives in a meaningless battle left alongside Baggy. Nearly half of the leaders of the pirate world left the scene, leaving only the steadfast ones behind. A sigh escaped Spank's lips as he gazed at the people who decided to fight till the bitter end. Mankey D. Buffy grinned as he looked at those who decided to stay. Let's throw a grand feast, Tit Mama declared. Eat to our heart's content, so when we face our death, we can face it with a full stomach. Isn't that right, boys? Yeah. Woo. Spanks had no complaints, so he nodded his head. We will open the wine cellars and the food house, Spanks said with a devilish smile on his face. Make merry, for this might be the last time we are doing it. Captain Jack Spawwow looked at his friends, Shane, Francesca, Britton, and Ching. All four of them decided to stay and make their last stand. How about it, Jack? Shane asked. Are you not going to run away this time? Captain Jack Spawwow smirked. The seas may be rough, but I am the captain. No matter how difficult, I will always prevail. Francesca, Britton, and Ching glanced at each other before nodding their heads in satisfaction. The five of them were the last living crew members of the whaling ship, Billy O.T. If they were going to die, they would all die together. Perhaps, when that happened, they would be able to meet their captain in the afterlife and tell him about their wonderful journeys in the seven seas. Due to the emotions that were rising up in his chest, Captain Jack Spawwow didn't notice that Aiko and Fei Fei had disappeared from his shoulders. The two baby slimes left the conference room and went after the pirates who had decided to escape. As to what she was going to do, even Fei Fei, who was her close friend, had no idea. But even so, the golden baby slime knew that Aiko would be the last to escape this battle and that she would make the seven seas tremble in her wake. After the meeting between the representatives of the different factions and the Elven royal family ended, or returned to Hirswitha's residence, the discussion lasted for a few hours, and frankly, she was mentally exhausted. However, when she arrived at the residence, the first thing she noticed was that there were no lights inside. The second thing she noticed was that it was unusually quiet, making her frown. After entering the house, she sensed that all the rooms were vacant except one, or pinched the bridge of her nose as she walked towards the door. She already had an idea about what she was going to see inside, and she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Just as expected, her sight was welcomed by Valerie and Ollie sleeping on the bed without any clothes on. Aurelia's gaze landed on their lower halves, and sure enough, she could see traces of Lux's seed on the sheets under them. The Dragon Prince shook her head as she walked toward the half-elf who was sitting on the bed. Ari was also there, and she was busy cleaning up little Lux from the session that they just had. Just like her twin sister, Ari also liked kissing things. However, the one she liked to kiss was little Lux. Of course, the half-elf didn't have any complaints whatsoever. You look tired, Lux said as Aurelia sat beside him. He then pulled her close and gave her a quick peck on the lips. I am, Aurelia replied. I'm mentally exhausted. How did the talks go? Lux inquired as he lightly patted Ari's head, making the latter nod her head in understanding. After kissing little Lux one last time, the Draco succubus laid down beside Valerie and hugged her like a pillow. Although it wasn't showing on her face, she was also quite tired after making love with the half-elf, who had indulged her for 6 rounds. Everything has been settled, and we've agreed on a mutual defense treaty, or explained as Lux picked her up like a princess and walked towards the couch. That's good, Lux replied. After placing her on the couch, he started undressing her, and the dragon princess didn't show any kind of resistance. You worked hard, or, Lux said with a smile. I did. Or nodded. I'll give you a full body massage. Okay. And with that, Lux gave the dragon princess the best massage she had felt in her life. Naturally, he also made sure to massage the places that his fingers couldn't reach, filling Aurelia to the brim until she fell asleep in his arms. Meanwhile, in the Zeno Kingdom, finally, we're back, Tristan said with an exhausted look on his face. Victor nodded. After the battle in the Divine Empire was over, the two stayed a bit in order to better understand the aftermath of the battle. Only when the majority of the factions had left did they return to their own kingdom. The two were still unable to believe that Aina's fiancé was that powerful. Although Lux was only a high ranker, the forces he could command were nothing to scoff at. Victor was sure that if he were to really fight Lux to the death, the one who would end up dying would be him. Even though he was still disappointed with what happened between the half-elf and his daughter, he no longer wished to antagonize the half-elf, who had played a role in the destruction of the main headquarters of the Divine Army. As soon as the two entered the castle, an adorable little dwarf ran in their direction, welcoming them with a big smile on her face. Father, brother. Colette didn't hesitate and jumped towards her father with her arms spread wide. Victor chuckled and caught his youngest daughter and spun her around before kissing her cheeks. Did you miss me, Colette?
Yes.
How about me? Tristan asked. Did you miss me too? Of course, brother, Khalid answered. Did you bring home some souvenirs from the Divine Kingdom? Tristan blinked once then twice before giving his answer. No. Tristan shook his head. Sorry, but I forgot to buy you some souvenirs. Buh. Colette pouted, which made Tristan scratch his cheek. How could he possibly tell his sister that he wasn't able to buy her any souvenirs because the Divine City had been erased from the face of the world? Would she believe him even if he told her? The answer was no. But if he told her that the one responsible for erasing the city was her big brother, Lux, would she believe it? The answer was yes. You're back, father, Aina said. Aina still wore her signature emotionless look, but if someone were to pay extra close attention to her eyes, they might notice the tinge of anxiety in them. Lux previously told her that he would go to the capital city of the Divine Army in order to rescue his master, Jaap. Since her father and brother had gone to the Divine City, she was dying to ask them about the things that had happened on the foundation day of the Divine Army. The queen of the Zeno Kingdom, Felicia, stood beside Aina and gave her husband an inquiring look. Seeing her gaze, Victor nodded his head. Tristan, play with Colette for a while, Victor said. I'm going to talk to Aina and your mother. Tristan nodded his head in understanding and held Colette's hand. The adorable dwarf had no idea that she was being excluded from an important meeting, but even if she knew, she would have been fine with that. It had been a while since she had seen Tristan, so she wanted to spend some time with her big brother who had been away on diplomatic missions. Victor motioned for Aina and Felicia to follow him. He had no intention of hiding things from Aina and his wife. The king of the Zeno Kingdom knew that this was a turning point in their kingdom's growth, so he needed to make an important decision. Of course, he would need the input of his daughter and his wife since it involved his future son-in-law. Inside Victor's and Felicia's room. And that is what happened, Victor said. Aina, your fiancé is a double-edged sword for our kingdom. It doesn't matter, Aina replied. I will always be on his side. But that doesn't mean that I don't care about the Zeno Kingdom. If worse comes to worst, you can announce that I will be stripped of my position as the princess of this kingdom and be sent to exile. If only it were that easy. Victor smiled bitterly. Even if I were to do that, if the Divine Army finds out about your relationship with Lux, there is a chance that they might use you as a hostage to lure him out of hiding. Aina shook her head. Right now, they can't afford to antagonize Lux. Their main headquarters has been destroyed, and they have suffered too many losses. Also, as long as we don't talk, no one will know about our relationship with him. Felicia, who had kept her silence from the start of the discussion, frowned. You are forgetting something important, Aina, Felicia said. When the beast tide attacked us, there were several observers from our neighboring kingdoms. They were hoping that the beast tide would overpower our defenses and deal great damage to our kingdom. If any of those people went to the Divine Empire to participate in their Founder's Day, they would be able to recognize Lux. Victor's expression turned grim because he had forgotten about this matter. There were indeed several observers from their neighboring kingdoms who had paid attention to their battle with the beast tide. If any of those bastards were to report to the Divine Army that Lux had helped them defend their kingdom, they would certainly send people to investigate. Aina, it would be best if you kept a low profile for now, Felicia stated. Don't leave the castle. Better yet, just stay inside your room for a week or two. Aina nodded her head in understanding. She loved Lux, but she also loved her family. She would do anything in her power to keep all of them safe. I will listen to you, mother, Aina replied. I will not show my face to anyone. I will temporarily let my vice guildmaster take over handling the affairs of the guild as well. Thank you, Aina. Felicia smiled as she hugged her beautiful daughter. It will just be for a short while. Victor sighed as he looked at his daughter. Just like Aina, he would do his best to protect his family. If their neighboring kingdoms really chose to antagonize them over this matter, then he would not hesitate to fight, even if he had to fight the divine army alone. Pirate Enclave. All the pirates were merrily drunk and ate to the fullest, as if this was the last feast that they would be having in this world. Captain Jack Sparrow talked about the old times as he drank with his friends. What do you think our chances of surviving this battle are? Shane asked. Do you even need to ask? Francesca arched an eyebrow as she refilled her mug with rum. The answer is 0. Britton and Ching nodded their heads in agreement. What do you think, Jack? Shane inquired. Captain Jack Sparrow drank half of the rum in his mug before answering. Well, I don't really think that we have a chance of winning, Captain Jack Sparrow said. But I'm glad that, at least, our captain's bloodline will not cease to exist. That boy, Baggy, might be a scaredy cat, but he is still the captain's grandson. I don't want to see him die anytime soon. Had to think that brat managed to survive until now, Quinn smirked. Talk about luck. The pirate captain, Baggy, was the grandson of their captain when they were still whalers. The boy had now grown up to be an adult, but in their eyes, he was still the teenage boy who would accompany them from time to time whenever they went whaling. He wasn't really part of the crew of the Billy O.T., but the times when he was with them were the times when their stoic captain would smile a lot. Just as Captain Jack Sparrow was about to refill his mug with rum, Jibbs entered the tavern with a grim expression on his face. Captain, we have a problem, Jib whispered in Jack Sparrow's ears. A very serious problem. Are we out of rum? Captain Jack Sparrow asked. Did the other pirates empty the wine cellar already? This is indeed a problem, Jibbs. Without rum, how can we be sober when the fighting begins? Jibbs, who was not in the mood for jokes, told his captain about the serious problem they were facing. Captain, the ship is no longer in the harbor, Jibbs whispered. Someone took it away. Jack Sparrow, who was refilling his mug with rum, looked at Jibbs in disbelief. Because of this, he didn't notice that the rum had started to overflow from his mug, making his comrades look at him as if he were a wastrel. Jack Sparrow, who seemed to have forgotten where he was, immediately left the tavern in haste. Jibbs followed behind him, and the two headed to the harbor of the pirate enclave. It was already night, but the full moon illuminated the surroundings. Captain Jack Sparrow looked at the spot where his pirate ship was originally docked a few hours ago with a frown. The majority of his pirate crew was lying in the harbor, and they were dead drunk. Those who were sober stared at their captain with anxious looks on their faces. Clearly, they were still shaken by what happened a few hours ago. You, tell me, where is our ship? Captain Jack Sparrow asked one of his crew, who was the least drunk among the bunch. See, Captain, the two baby slimes hijacked the ship and sailed away, the pirate replied. Hijacked? Captain Jack Sparrow frowned. Are you talking about Aiko and Fei Fei? Yes, the pirate nodded his head in confirmation. It was those two who hijacked our ship, Captain. But how? Captain Jack Sparrow asked. Why didn't you guys stop them? We tried, Captain, but they kicked us off of the ship with ease. We were also too drunk to fight, so we were subdued by their minions easily. The frown on Captain Jack Sparrow's face deepened. Are you telling me that two baby slimes kicked you out of the ship, and none of you had been able to put up any resistance? Captain Jack Sparrow inquired. Captain, she wasn't alone, the pirate replied. She summoned these big slimes that knocked us out easily. It happened too fast, and before we knew it, we were all lying here on the docks and the ship was gone. Captain Jack Sparrow scratched his head. This doesn't make any sense. Those two are well-behaved children. They would not do something like this. I'm sorry, Captain, the pirate said. I'm just telling you what I saw. It really was those two baby slimes that took our ship. While Captain Jack Sparrow was trying to make sense of what was going on, their ship was already several miles away from the pirate enclave. Hum hum hum. Aiko hummed as she sat on the steering wheel, navigating the pirate ship in the open seas. Fei Fei, on the other hand, was using a telescope to observe the pirate fleet in the distance. Fei Fei reported. Eiko replied. Just like what the pirate had said earlier, Eiko and Fei Fei hijacked the pirate ship and pursued the pirates who had left the pirate enclave in order to escape the battle that would happen in less than 2 days' time. But the pirate fleet was moving too fast, and with just 2 baby slimes manning the ship, their chances of catching up were slim. Because of this, Eiko decided to call a friend. A 2-meter-tall skeleton pirate king, wearing an admiral's robe and a red pirate hat, appeared beside the baby slime. "Help?" Eiko asked. The skeleton pirate king nodded. Pirate cruiser operational. At that moment, the pirate ship that Eiko and Fei Fei were sailing suddenly came to a complete stop. A few seconds later, it rose from the sea, as something gigantic moved under it. The waves rose as the pirate ship surged forward. The pirates, who sensed a powerful presence behind them, looked in the distance with pale expressions on their faces. Pirate Captain Baggy's eyes widened in shock as he looked at the thing that was approaching them from behind. Dear mother of... All the pirate captains who had decided to leave the pirate enclave in order to survive the attack of the Ford Federation couldn't help but shudder as they gazed at the approaching behemoth. Eiko had a devilish look on her face as the ship slowly closed the distance between her and the pirate fleet that she was trying to pursue. The skeleton pirate king standing behind the baby slime couldn't help but look at the pirates, whom his mistress had set her eyes on, with pity. Fei Fei, who was right beside her, giggled as she summoned a blast bomb in her hand. Eiko also giggled and did the same. The 2 baby slimes looked at the pirate fleet that was only a few hundred meters away from them and smiled evilly. This was going to be a night that Baggy and the other pirate captains, who decided to escape, would remember for the rest of their lives. Lux, Valerie, or Ollie, and Ari spent their last day in a Sporfrieden in each other's company. They didn't leave the residence and spent every minute they had left together. Ollie and Ari, who felt left out whenever Lux removed his ring to make love to Valerie and complained that they should be treated the same way. It's unfair. Why do you wear that ring when you do it with us? Ollie asked. What is this discrimination? That's right, Ari supported her sister's words. Aren't we also your lovers? Why don't you knock us up as well? I promised to give birth to a beautiful daughter for you. The 2 handmaidens, who were currently sitting on each of Lux's legs, looked at him with dissatisfaction. Ari, the 2 of you are Valerie's handmaidens, Lux replied. Who will take care of Valerie if ever she really gets pregnant? Also, if either of you gets pregnant, there's a chance that you will be forced to leave her side. You should focus on taking care of Valerie for the time being. I promise that I will also give you what you want when the time is right. Ollie and Ari glanced at each other before reluctantly nodding their heads. They knew that Lux had a point, and it would be bad if both of them were to get pregnant at the same time as Valerie. If that happened, things might get complicated. So for the time being, they decided to accept Lux's explanation. Things might get complicated. So for the time being, they decided to accept Lux's explanation. Fine. We'll let you off the hook this time, Ollie said before kissing Lux's left cheek. But after Valerie gives birth, you better keep your word. Okay, Lux nodded as he kissed her back. I promise. Ari kissed Lux's right cheek without saying a word, and the half-elf kissed her back. A few minutes later, the 3 of them did a threesome before resting for the night. The next morning, come visit us often, okay? Hirswitha's mother, Eurydice, said as she hugged her daughter tightly. I'll always be waiting for your return. The High King of Sporfrieden, Casimir, hugged his wife and daughter without saying a word. He had bid his farewell to Hirswith an hour ago, and he already told her everything he wanted to say. Their other guests had already left their kingdom, and the only delegations that remained were those from Karshvar Draconis and the Crystal Palace. After a few more minutes, Hirswith reluctantly pulled back and smiled at her parents. I'll visit from time to time, Hirswith said. Both of you, take care of yourself, okay? We will, Eurydice replied. After bidding one last goodbye, Hirswith accompanied Lux and readied to return to the Crystal Palace. The 2 groups used the teleportation gate of the Elven royal family and appeared in their respective kingdoms. Lady Faustina and Picoro had already set their coordinates to their capital cities, drastically decreasing the travel time on their trip back home. Valerie, Ali, and Ari looked at the half-elf with a meaningful gaze as they waited for their turn to enter the portal. Lux nodded, meaning to tell his three lovers that they could come and visit him whenever they found the opportunity to do so. He had already expected that he wouldn't be seeing them anytime soon due to the aftermath of what happened to the Divine Empire. A few minutes later, the delegation of Karshvar Draconis disappeared as they teleported to their capital city. "It's our turn now," Picoro said as he walked forward. Lux and her followed behind him, while Hirswith followed behind her grand disciple. The other saints, who served as Or's protectors, also entered the range of the teleportation gate and waited for their turn to depart. With a bright flash of light, they all left the Elven Empire and returned to the place where they belonged. Heaven's Gate Guild Headquarters. The moment Lux arrived in his guild headquarters, he summoned Emma and General Garrett to the conference room to hear their report. The two were the ones who managed the affairs of their guild while he was away, and he wanted to know if they encountered any difficulties during the month that he was gone. After hearing about Gaap's death, Emma and Garrett were worried about Lux's state of mind, but the half-elf assured them that he was doing better than expected. Half an hour later, their discussion ended, and Lux left his guild headquarters to go to the highest peak on the floating island. His master would often visit this place to meditate and ponder the things that he wanted to do in life. Lux could not think of any better place to bury his master's ashes, so he decided to choose this location for Jaap's tomb. After burying the jar in the ground, he and his Grand Master, Hirswith, created a majestic tomb to honor the halfling. Here lies Jaap, the greatest master and disciple in Elysium. Lux looked at the plaque that Hirswith made and smiled. The two of them then poured bottles of wine on the tomb as an offering to the halfling, who liked to drink alcoholic beverages in his spare time. After they were done with their offerings, the two sat cross-legged in front of it as they made their vigil. Hannah appeared beside Lux and joined them as well. There were many traditions followed to mourn the dead in Elysium, and the method that they chose was the simplest of them all. They would stay on the peak for 7 days and would only eat when the sun had set. This was their way of paying their respects to the dead, which both of them found ironic. The two of them were necromancers, and not just any kind of necromancers. They were both necromancers of heaven. Yet even with all their powers, they were unable to revive the person that was dear to the two of them. Antero was no longer in Elysium and had returned to the abyss. There was no longer an anchor that bound him to the world, so this outcome was already set in stone. Lux and Hirswith asked Hannah how the halfling had lived his life when he was wandering the lands of Elysium on his own. The Fox Lady happily told them about the things that Jaap had done, as well as how she first encountered him. After sharing all the halfling's happy stories, she then moved to the sad ones. Hirswith teared up after hearing that her disciple had spent countless nights preparing for his final showdown with the divine army of light. Hannah also thanked Lux because, if not for him, his master might have lived the last of his days with only the goal of revenge in his mind. She added that when Jaap was with the half-elf, he laughed more, smiled more, and enjoyed life more. All the memories that they shared together were precious, and Hannah knew that, even though her master was no longer with them, the memory of him would always remain inside their hearts. A week later, the three people stood up and bowed to Jaap's tomb one last time. Their mourning had ended, and it was time for them to move on and continue their own lives. "Lux, I will be leaving for a bit," Hirswith said. "I will go to the headquarters of Memento Mori. There are a few things that I want to ask them." The half-elf nodded his head in understanding. "Understood, Grandmaster," Lux replied. "For the time being, I will visit a few places before I start looking for the clues that will lead me to the Pillars of Eternity." Hirswith smiled and patted the half-elf's shoulder. "Be safe, okay?" Hirswith said. "Also, don't find trouble with the divine army of light. Now is not the time to fight them again, but rest assured, I'll make sure to kill that B*T Oracle no matter what." Lux smirked because that was also his plan. Although he wouldn't actively look for the members of the divine army of light, If there came an opportunity to avenge his master, he would gladly take the chance to do it. Just like Hirswith, he wouldn't be able to forget his hatred for the Oracle, who was responsible for the death of his master and grandmaster. Even if the gods forgive her, I will never forgive her, Lux vowed in his heart. I will not stop until she is safely stored inside Blackfire. The half-elf gave his master's tomb one last glance before flying away. He needed to return and stay in Solais for a week or two in order to catch up with his two fiancées. He also planned to confess to Iris and Kai that he had gained 5 lovers while he was away. A/N, 5 including Aina. Although he didn't know how the two of them would react, he didn't have any intention of hiding the truth from them. While these things were happening, the factions in Elysium started to stir. Although a great battle had just ended, the preparation for the next one was already underway. Iris and Kai hugged Lux as they all sat on the couch together. They listened to him as he recounted everything that happened in Elysium during the time that they weren't together. They felt sad upon hearing JP's death and felt indebted to him for the latter had sacrificed his life to save their fiancée from death. When he was about to tell them about Aina, Lux felt conflicted if he should tell them about his past life. Although he didn't mind letting them know about it, he felt that it would just complicate things. However, he was also certain that Iris and Kai wouldn't think much about it. He also wasn't sure whether the two gods who were protecting Elysium and Solais would allow him to speak about matters that should only be known to the gods. As if knowing what he was thinking, he heard Ariel's voice inside his head. The god of games told him that he shouldn't share this kind of information with others. Since he had already been given a warning, he decided to tweak his story about Aina a bit and told them that the two of them had developed feelings with each other during their encounters in Elysium. Although Iris and Kai felt that the half-elf was not telling them everything, they decided to trust him and accept his love for Aina. However, when he told the two about how he and the 4 dragon ladies became lovers, Kai wasn't able to stop her lips from twitching. An aphrodisiac? Kai looked at the half-elf in disbelief. How strong was it? Very strong, Lux replied with a straight face. Before I got hold of my senses, I had already done the deed. Iris smiled, while Kai arched an eyebrow. Both of them knew that Lux was someone who took relationships seriously, so they could understand why he would want to take responsibility after doing what he did. 1 dwarf princess and 2 dragon princesses, Iris said with a smile. I don't know if I should praise you or pinch you for making these girls your lovers. E/N. A Garthian princess is next, tongue sticking out. Well, after observing Valerie, Ali, and Ari when we visited your guild headquarters, I could already tell that it was only a matter of time before you crossed that line, Kai commented. I just didn't expect that it would be this soon. Iris nodded her head in agreement. Well, they are all beautiful girls, and they also have status. I don't mind calling them my sisters. Still, there is a possibility that you made 2 of them pregnant, huh? Kai narrowed her gaze. I think that's unfair. Iris and I should have been first in the pecking order. I asked you to get me pregnant in the abyss, but you refused me. You told me to wait, but you completely went wild with those 2 dragon princesses. Isn't this discrimination? Lux could only smile bitterly because Kai had a point. However, if given the choice, he still didn't want Iris and Kai to conceive his children due to the threat of the destruction of Solais. I know that it was a selfish thing to do, Lux said. I plead guilty, but I hope that you and Iris will not ask me to make the 2 of you pregnant. Right now, Solais is not a very stable place. I know that the Rowan tribe, Barbados Academy, and the 6 kingdoms are already doing their best to secure their own territories in Elysium in order to migrate as a last resort. But until we are certain that no harm will come to the 2 of you, let us put our baby-making sessions on hold, shall we? Iris and Kai frowned, but they also understood where Lux was coming from. Alexander and Maximilian had already told them about the migration plan to escape from the miasma, currently on the borders of the 6 kingdoms, that was starting to slowly but surely encroach upon the territories of the 6 kingdoms. After an in-depth examination, they estimated that they only had 3 years at the minimum and 4 years at the maximum until the lands of the 6 kingdoms became uninhabitable. Because of this, they were rushing to build their cities in Elysium in preparation for the mass migration. This was also why Aina's parents decided to take a gamble and founded their own kingdom in Elysium while they still had the time to do it. They no longer felt safe in Solais, so migrating was the only option left to them. Very well, we will listen to you, Iris said. 3 years. After 3 years, we will no longer hold back, okay? I hope you don't go back on your word when that time comes, Kai stated. We have already waited long enough. Lux nodded. Understood. How long will you be staying here? Iris asked. A week or two, Lux replied. Aurelia also wanted to meet the two of you. So if both of you are free, can you accompany me to the Crystal Palace to meet her? Okay, Iris replied in a heartbeat. I want to see her as well, Kai smiled. To think that the Dragon Prince was actually a dragon princess. I have to confirm for myself if it's real or not. Lux shook his head helplessly. You think I am making things up? Of course not, Kai replied. But I've seen Or, and I find it hard to believe that he is actually a she. There must be a reason why she is hiding her gender, don't you think? Did she tell you the reason why? Lux pondered for a bit. Truth be told, he didn't ask Or this question because he didn't want to pry in her privacy. However, he had an idea why she was hiding her gender. But unless he personally heard the reason from her, he decided to not make any premature assumptions at this point in time. I'm sure that she has her reasons, Lux stated, but I won't ask this from her. If she feels that she is comfortable enough to share his reason with me, I'm sure that she will tell me about it. Kai thought for a bit before nodding her head. Or had her secrets, just like she had her own secrets. Since that was the case, she would also not ask her questions that might make her feel uncomfortable. After they finished their discussion, Iris and Kai pinned the half-elf down on the bed. They had a lot of catching up to do, and they would make sure to remind the half-elf that he still had 2 fiancées who loved him very much. Admiral, we've tried everything, but none of us can enter the domain, an officer reported. I see. A man who was a little more than 2 meters tall replied with a smile on his face. Tell everyone to get into formation and prepare to execute Plan B. Yes, Admiral. The officer saluted before walking away to carry out his superior's orders. The Admiral lit the pipe in his hand and took a deep drag. A moment later, he blew out several white circles that were made up of smoke and looked at the map on top of his table. His name was Onyx Dreadheart. He hailed from the Dreadheart family, one of the 3 great families of the Ford Federation. The 3 great families consisted of the Dreadheart family, Shadowheart family, and Ashenheart family. Each of these families had a supreme backing them, making them the shadow rulers of the Ford Federation. Under them were the 10 prestigious families, who acted as their direct subordinates, helping them with the management of the Federation. The reason why they were called the shadow rulers of the Federation was because they weren't really the true rulers of the land. There was a family who stood above them all, and they ruled the islands within the 7 seas. The name of this family was the Darkstar family, and the 3 great families had long wanted to kick them out of their position so that they could finally take full control of the Ford Federation. The Darkstar family didn't have any supremes among their ranks. In fact, they only had saints. However, there was one simple reason as to why the 3 great families didn't dare to usurp their position. The ancestor of the Darkstar family was still alive. Although that man was only of the saint rank and shouldn't be considered as a threat, behind this person was his beast companion who intimidated the 3 great families, as well as their subordinate families, into not daring to cross them. The ancestor of the Darkstar family managed to befriend one of the emperors of the sea. With the creature backing the ancestor of the Darkstar family, the 3 great families were unable to make strong enough waves that could topple their rule. This sea monster was so strong that many believed it to be a peak demigod. Even 3 supremes would have to think twice before attacking such a creature, and a battle of that magnitude would certainly cripple or kill any of the 3 supremes. With this threat, none of them wanted that to happen. But after patiently waiting for hundreds of years, the ancestor of the Darkstar family was finally nearing his end. According to the healer, the saint only had a month or 2 to live. Knowing this, the 3 great families decided to use this opportunity to weaken the supporters of the Darkstar family. They had declared that they would eliminate all the pirates in the 7 seas, ensuring everyone's safety. In order to ensure that everyone would be on the same page, They declared that those who wouldn't join them in battle would be considered by the Ford Federation as siding with the enemy and would be labeled traitors. Knowing that the ancestor of the Darkstar clan was dying, the families who originally supported them jumped ship and voiced their intentions to join the Great Pirate Purge. Of course, this was the perfect opportunity for the three great families to increase their influence and make the populace look up to them as heroes who fought against the pirates, who were notorious bandits at sea. What they didn't know was that the three great families and the 10 prestigious families were no better than the pirates. Heck, they even created their own pirate fleets and used them to attack the merchants, who belonged to their competitors at sea, shifting the blame onto the pirates. Because of this, the Ford Federation hated the pirates with a vengeance. Of course, the pirates weren't good people either. They were true to their name as bandits of the sea. However, these pirates choose their targets. They would only attack the vessels that belonged to the three great families and 10 prestigious families. This was also why these families hated them with a vengeance. Now that the ancestor of the Darkstar clan was about to croak, there was no better opportunity to wipe out the last forces that would resist their rule in the Ford Federation. Once all the pirates were eliminated, the three great families were bound to enjoy an era of prosperity, while toying with the citizens of the Ford Federation from the shadows. A day later, Admiral, according to the navigators, we will reach our destination in half a day, the officer reported. Should we maintain our current formation? Yes, Admiral Onyx replied. However, make sure to stop 6 miles away from the pirate enclave. We will trap them in an encirclement and prevent them from escaping. Yes, Admiral. The officer saluted and left the Admiral's office. Admiral Onyx looked at the map on top of the table and stabbed his dagger into the island that represented the pirate enclave. Even if all the pirates escaped, as long as they destroyed the island, they would be able to consider it a victory. There was no longer a place in the Ford Federation where these pirates could hide since all the islands were now under their control. Admiral Onyx knew that the pirate enclave had a special meaning to the pirates because this had been the headquarters of the Pirate King in the past. Every pirate's biggest goal was to be the Pirate King. But if their very symbol of authority was taken from them, then they would no longer be able to raise their heads and make their dreams a reality. The pirates knew of this as well. Because of this, even though nearly half of their forces had decided to not participate in the battle, those with strong wills decided to stay and fight. They were the people who were serious about becoming the Pirate King and wanted to unite all pirates under one banner once again. 2 hours later, the officer returned with an excited expression on his face. Admiral, it seems that we no longer need to go to the pirate enclave to exterminate those pirate scums, the officer reported. They have decided to serve themselves to us on a silver platter. Admiral Onyx chuckled before standing up from his chair. He then walked out of the room, with a sneer plastered on his face. So you fools don't want your little pirate island to be destroyed, huh? Admiral Onyx mused. For him, it didn't really matter whether they fought their enemies near the pirate enclave or on the open seas. The result will be the same, Admiral Onyx muttered, as he raised his hand to inform the battleships of the Ford Federation to get into position. It will be a one-sided annihilation, with our forces emerging victorious. Admiral Onyx smirked as he looked at the grand pirate coalition in the distance. Hundreds of pirate ships sailed side by side, like an impenetrable wall. However, the Admiral knew that this wall wouldn't be strong enough to block his path. He was certain that before this day was over, the sea would turn red with the blood of his enemies, and the heads of the pirate captains would be collected. Admiral Onyx intended to mount these heads on countless spikes and display them as a warning to everyone who dared to stand in the way of their ambitions, that they would suffer the same fate. The pirate captains stared at the countless ships in the distance. Their enemies completely outnumbered them 20-1, and they even had a supreme leading them. Their chances of winning this battle were extremely slim, and yet, none of them had the slightest intention of backing down. Those who wanted to escape had already left, and those who remained were the people who were ready and willing to die for what they believed in. Captain Jack Spawwow stood on top of his pirate ship, which had been returned to him a few hours ago by several skeleton swashbucklers. The pirate captain was, of course, very happy that his ship was returned to him. One of the skeleton swashbucklers even gave him a cookie bag, which he believed was Aiko's apology gift for hijacking his ship. Truth be told, Captain Jack Spawwow was glad that Aiko and Fei Fei didn't have to join them in this battle, where both of them might die. He didn't mind dying because his life was his responsibility, and he believed that he had already lived his life to the fullest. On the contrary, the two baby slimes were still young, and their masters would be very sad if either of them died at sea. "Captain, it has been an honor serving you," Jibs said as he stood beside Captain Jack Spawwow, who was busy munching on the cookies that Aiko gave him. "Ah, it is an honor indeed to serve a dashing, awesome, and charismatic captain such as me." Captain Jack Spawwow smiled as he offered Jibs the bag of cookies in his hand. "Want some?" "Aye," Jibs replied and took a cookie. "Delicious." Captain Jack Spawwow laughed and called out to the rest of his pirate crew. "Lads, take one each," Captain Jack Spawwow ordered. "This is a gift from our dear friend, Aiko. Make sure to remember her when we cross over to the shores of the afterlife." "Aye, Captain." The pirates all lined up and took a cookie each. The two baby slimes were very good kids, and the pirates had a very good impression of them. In fact, they also shared their captain's thoughts. They were glad that Aiko and Fei Fei weren't with them because the two babies would definitely not survive a battle of this magnitude. "Captain, they are moving," Jibs reported when he noticed that the battleships in front of them were spreading out. Captain Jack Spawwow sneered when he saw this scene. "They are trying to surround us to prevent us from running away. They really thought that we had plans of escaping, huh?" "Aye," Jibs nodded. "The flag on the flagship belongs to the Dreadheart family. I have every reason to believe that they are led by Admiral Onyx." "Ah, that brute without class," Captain Jack Spawwow smirked. "Help me later, Jibs. I plan to stab that person's guts out." "I'm with you on this one, Cap," Jibs replied. "That man deserves to die." Captain Jack Spawwow then looked at the biggest pirate ship in their ranks. Right now, the entire pirate fleet was under the command of Spanx. Once he gave the order, all of them would make their last stand. "It's about time." Spanx narrowed his eyes. But just as he was about to give the order to advance, he caught something out of the corner of his eye. Hundreds of ships were gradually zooming into view from the horizon, and they were moving toward the battleships of the Ford Federation at a very fast rate. Admiral Onyx and his men all gazed at the newcomers with sneers on their faces. They had already expected that some of the pirates would escape in order to save their lives. However, seeing that these idiots had returned just to die made the Admiral laugh in his heart. "Which pirate crew do those ships belong to?" Admiral Onyx asked. The officer standing beside him took out a telescope and checked the flags that were fluttering in the breeze. A moment later, a frown appeared on his face as he looked at the ships a second time. After confirming that his guess was right, he looked at the Admiral with a confused look on his face. "Sir, this is the first time I've seen that pirate flag," the officer reported. "I have no idea what faction they belong to." Admiral Onyx arched an eyebrow and took out his own telescope. He then gazed at the flagship that was leading the attack and saw a familiar pirate standing on its deck. "Isn't that Baggy?" Admiral Onyx thought. However, when he shifted his telescope to check the pirate flag on the ship, he didn't recognize it either. An emblem of a blue slime with devilish-looking eyes, holding two bombs in its hands, fluttered in the breeze. As someone who had been in the Ford Federation for more than a century, this was the first time he had seen such an emblem. Suddenly, music spread in the surroundings as Baggy and his crew started to stomp on the decks of their ships while playing their musical instruments. In front of them, two baby slimes were floating on the waters hundreds of meters away from them. A/N. For maximum enjoyment of the upcoming scenes, search for the Wellerman Country Humans 5 Artist Collab on YouTube and sing along. E/N. Not a suggestion. Listen to it. There once was a ship that put to sea. The name of the ship was the Billy O.T., Baggy sang. The winds blew up, her bow dipped down. "Oh blow, my bully boys blow." All the pirates within the fleet stomped their feet and raised their hands together as they sang the chorus of the song. "Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go." Captain Jack Spawwow, who heard this song, laughed out loud and reversed the pirate hat on his head. He then raised his sword high up and urged his crew to sail forward. She'd not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. Captain Jack Spawwow sang happily. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. The crew of his pirate ship all sang as they sailed to join the pirate fleet that was led by their captain's grandson, Baggy. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Francesca tapped her foot on the deck of her ship as a wistful smile appeared on her face. Before the boat had hit the water, the whale's tail came up and caught her. Francesca laughed. All hands to the side harpooned and fought her when she dived down low. Her pirate crew could tell what their pirate captain was thinking, so they all took action and unfurled their sails in order to join the battle. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Quinn roared as he jumped towards the top of the mast of his ship and spread his arms wide. No line was cut, no whale was freed. The captain's mind was not of greed. Quinn took out his sword and pointed it forward. And he belonged to the whaleman's creed. He took that ship in tow. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Shane and Britton glanced at each other and laughed together. Their ships also surged forward in order to join the battle. They felt as if they had returned to their whaling days, the times when they were under the command of their captain, who had perished under the hands of the 3 great families. For 40 days or even more, the line went slack then tight once more, Shane declared. All boats were lost, there were only 4, but still that whale did go. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea, and one day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. As far as I've heard, the fight's still on, the line's not cut, and the whale's not gone, Britton stated. The Wellerman makes his regular call to encourage the captain, crew, and all. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea, and one day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Aiko, who was floating on the sea, as if she was just swimming, suddenly raised her hand. A moment later, an enormous wave surged upward, carrying the 2 baby slimes with it. Suddenly, a gigantic ship that was over 60 meters tall appeared in front of everyone. This ship was completely made up of bones, and countless cannons that ranged from 5 meters to 10 meters tall all moved at the same time to aim at the flagship of the Dreadheart family. On the main mast of the ship, a giant flag fluttered in the wind. Everyone gazed at the emblem that looked like a baby blue slime with devilish-looking eyes, holding 2 bombs in its hand. Countless skeleton swashbucklers all stomped their feet on the deck of the ship and sang along with everyone. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day, when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Aiko then jumped on the commanding platform of the ship and pointed at her enemies. Boom boom Bakugan. At that moment, countless cannons fired in unison, decimating the ships that belonged to the 3 great families. Historians would fondly remember this day as the Battle of Kings, and the very day when the pirate princess was born. Not expecting to receive a heavy bombardment from their enemies, Admiral Onyx roared in anger. He immediately took off to the skies and activated his artifacts to protect their flagship, as well as the other battleships that belonged to the 3 great families. Before the battle started, he was very confident that he and his fleet would easily emerge victorious. But now, he wasn't that sure anymore. The gigantic bone ship in the distance was like a towering fortress in the middle of the sea. The other battleships of the Ford Federation had already open-fired and aimed their cannons at the bone ship, but the behemoth was unaffected by their attacks. The rankers and high rankers were also unleashing their long-range attacks. But even if their spells landed on their target, it would explode but not leave even a single scratch on its body. This can't continue, Admiral Onyx thought. I need to deal with that ship now. The bone ship's firepower was simply too strong and accurate. Every time one of its cannons fired, one of the battleships belonging to the Ford Federation would sink into the sea. The barriers around the battleships could not even block the cannon fire of the bone ship, which made the faces of the officers of the Ford Federation turn grim. "Sir, the pirates' main fleet is advancing," Admiral Onyx's personal aide shouted. "Your orders, Admiral?" "Tell the fleets of the 10 prestigious family to deal with them on their own," Admiral Onyx commanded. "Fleets of the 3 great families, rally to me. We will deal with that bone ship first." "Yeah." With Admiral Onyx at the head of the formation, the fleet of the 3 great families charged at the bone ship in the distance. Aiko's bombardment had already decimated a tenth of their fleet, so they all understood that, unless they took out the gigantic battleship in front of them, their chances of winning this battle would remain slim. Aiko and Fei Fei, who were on the commanding platform of the bone ship, which the baby blue slime had named Poseidon, looked at Admiral Onyx in the distance using a telescope. Even when facing a supreme, the baby slime wasn't worried. The reason? It was because of the skeleton pirate king standing behind her with his arms clasped behind his back. "Avery," Aiko said. "Yes, princess?" Avery replied. "Fight him, okay?" Aiko pointed at the supreme that was headed in their direction. "As you wish," the skeleton pirate king nodded. "Should I kill him?" "No," Aiko answered. "Half dead, please." "By your will, princess." "Avery, I'll sing you a song. It's a song of the sea. Row, me bully boys, row." "Oh, I'll sing you a song if you'll sing it with me. And it's row, me bully boys, row." Aiko's first admiral. Ancient skeleton pirate king. Terror of the 7 seas. Rating: SSR+++. Monster rank: peak demigod world boss. Health: slash mana slash strength intelligence vitality agility dexterity. Aiko had fought many battles alongside her papa, so she had a general understanding of the power levels between the different ranks. Even if her opponent was a supreme, she wasn't worried. After all, she did not have just 1, but 2 peak demigods protecting her. The bone ship, Poseidon, was a living creature and was also a peak demigod world boss. Naturally, Poseidon was stronger than Avery. Why? It was because the bone ship possessed not 1, not 2, but 3 demigod beast cores. If Admiral Onyx thought from the start that the fleet of the Ford Federation could annihilate all the pirates in the 7 seas, then Aiko was confident that her bone ship alone could obliterate the entire fleet of the Ford Federation. The fleet of the 3 great families, which was currently charging towards the bone ship, noticed that none of the ship's cannons were targeting them. Instead, the destructive behemoth was aiming at the fleet of the 10 prestigious families, who were now engaging the main pirate fleet. "You really think we can't sink you, huh?" Admiral Onyx sneered. "I'll make you understand that it was a mistake fighting against the 3 great families." "Oh, really?" A voice filled with disdain reached the Admiral's ears. It was then when the notorious skeleton pirate king, Avery, appeared in front of him, with his hands clasped behind his back. "Who are you?" Admiral Onyx asked. He tried to sense the rank of the enemy in front of him, but to his surprise, he wasn't able to gauge the monster's strength. "The name is Avery," the skeleton pirate king replied. Admiral Onyx frowned because this was the first time he had heard such a name. "Tell me, which faction do you belong to?" Admiral Onyx inquired. "You're not from the Isles of the Ford Federation. Did you come from the main continent?" The Admiral's face had turned grim because there was only one explanation for why he couldn't sense the monster's rank. The skeleton pirate king in front of him was stronger than him by a large margin. A chuckle escaped Avery's lips as he gazed at the Admiral, who seemed to have finally realized who he was dealing with. "I am a member of the Boom Boom pirate crew," Avery answered. "The time for questions and answers has ended. All you need to know is that my princess had asked me to deal with you and your fleet. Since that is the case, you should just obediently submit and accept your fate." Admiral Onyx immediately imbued his spear with blazing flames as a look of defiance appeared in his eyes. Although he vaguely knew that his opponent was stronger than him, he refused to believe that he would be unable to beat the skeleton pirate king if he went all out. "Foolish man," Avery sighed. "Very well. I'll make you understand that in the face of our princess decree, resistance is meaningless." Admiral Onyx roared and charged at Avery with the full might of a supreme. The members of the three great families, who saw their admiral personally taking action, all cheered because they believed that as long as Admiral Onyx took the lead to fight this battle, their victory was assured. Although they had suffered losses, their morale was at an all-time high. Their cheers reverberated on the battlefield, drowning out the sounds of the cannons around them. However, this cheering instantly stopped when Avery casually dodged Admiral Onyx's spear thrust and counterattacked with a slap. The proud Supreme of the Ford Federation cried out in pain as he shot backward like a cannonball toward his own flagship. Everyone on his side who witnessed it instantly fell into despair. Avery's slap was so strong that, the moment Avery hit the flagship of the Dreadheart family, the vessel split into two. "This is impossible," one of the officers of a ship beside the flagship muttered in disbelief. "This can't be happening." This was the thought of everyone who belonged to the great families. They had come to start a one-sided annihilation of the pirates, not the other way around. Even now, they refused to believe that the strongest admiral in their fleet had been easily dealt with by their enemy with just a single slap. To make matters worse, their flagship, which was the best vessel in their fleet, was destroyed in the blink of an eye, despite being covered by multiple defensive artifacts. This made the members of the three great families panic. "Retreat!" All the officers who were commanding their own ships shouted. They knew that this battle was lost the moment their admiral was defeated. However, how could they possibly escape when Avery was standing in front of them? The skeleton pirate king chuckled as he waved his hand. Countless skeleton spikes jutted out of the sea, preventing any of the ships from escaping. "Did I tell you that you could leave?" Avery rhetorically asked with a devilish smile on his face. "If you don't want to die, behave and submit to my princess. That way, you will be able to live another day." After saying those words, Avery disappeared from where he was and dove into the sea. Admiral Onyx had regained his consciousness and tried to escape underwater, hoping that no one would notice him. He wanted to return to the Ford Federation and tell the two other Supremes who didn't join the battle about the appearance of the skeleton pirate king. Admiral Onyx believed that, as long as the three of them worked together, they would have a chance of winning against the monster who had appeared out of nowhere. At that moment, he heard the sound of singing inside his head. "I'll sing you a song. It's a song of the sea. Row, me bully boys, row. Oh, I'll sing you a song if you'll sing it with me, and it's row, me bully boys, row." All the hairs at the back of the admiral's neck stood up on end as the face of the skeleton pirate king appeared in front of him. Deep under the sea, a soundless scream was drowned out by the water as one of the Supremes of the three great families faced the terror of the seven seas. No matter what he did, no matter how much he struggled, it was all futile in the face of absolute strength. After beating the Supreme until he was half dead, Avery rose from the water and reappeared on the deck of the bone ship, Poseidon. "Princess, I am back," Avery said respectfully. "Good job," Eiko nodded. "Blackfire, get him." The black coffin appeared above Eiko and opened its lid. A childlike giggle rose from the dark depths of the coffin as countless hands grabbed hold of the dying Supreme. Admiral Onyx, who had sensed that something terrible was going to happen to him, raised his head to look at the black coffin. A glint appeared in his eyes as his gaze landed on the baby slime, whom Avery had called Princess. That must be their leader, Avery thought as he gathered all the strength in his body to kill the baby slime, who was looking back at him with a fearless gaze. But before he could even move to attack Eiko, Avery's foot landed on his head, smashing it against the deck of the ship, interrupting Admiral Onyx's concentration. Blackfire giggled a second time because he found the Admiral's attempt quite amusing. By the time Avery was done beating the other party, Admiral Onyx's face had turned into a bloody mess, making it impossible to identify him. The black coffin no longer hesitated and pulled the Supreme inside its body until the Admiral disappeared from sight. "You want saints, Blackfire?" Eiko asked the black coffin, who nodded its body in reply. "Avery, help Blackfire get saints," Eiko ordered. "As you command, Princess," Avery replied, and he once again disappeared from the deck of the ship. Blackfire, who also sensed that there were several saints ripe for the picking, flew towards the fleet of the Ford Federation. The Black Coffin's standards had already changed, and it no longer bothered to collect ordinary rankers. Since it could only devour 100,000 souls, it decided to be more selective and only set its sights on high rankers, saints, supremes, calamities, and demigods. With dozens of saints ready to be devoured, the Black Coffin was especially excited. It felt very sad when it wasn't able to help his master save JAP from his imminent death. Even with all of its powers, there was simply nothing Blackfire could do to change JAP's fate. Even if it gathered the halfling's ashes and reanimated it, he would not be the same person that Lux and Hirswith cared for. Doing so would just depress its master even more, so Blackfire chose not to do it. It knew that seeing the revived halfling would only hurt its master, so it defied Lux's order and refused to do anything back then. Still, Blackfire had no intention of letting the same thing happen again. Because of this, it decided to speed up its collection of strong fighters who would help its master against his enemies. The half-elf and the Black Coffin shared a common goal. Their main target remained the same, and that was none other than the vile woman, who had repeatedly schemed to kill Hirswith, JP, and Lux. Blackfire wanted nothing more than to devour the Oracle of the Divine Army. It didn't care what method was used in order to achieve its goal. It also didn't care if it got the Oracle dead or alive. The Black Coffin wouldn't stop until the Oracle ended up in its deadly embrace. Blackfire knew that once that day finally came when the Oracle fell into its grasp, it would make her understand that there were fates worse than death. So for now, it would focus on the task at hand. With the help of Avery, the Black Coffin devoured all of the saints and high rankers of the Ford Federation, leaving the rest to the mercy of the pirate princess. The battle ended in less than an hour, and the pirates rounded up the survivors. Although the pirates also suffered many casualties, they were still very happy with the outcome. All of them directed their reverent gaze at the baby slime, who was perched on top of the fluttering flag of her bone ship. Aiko stared at the pirates who were looking up at her with a smile. Captain Jack Spawow, who was also staring up at Aiko, couldn't help but smirk. Although he was certain that the baby slime didn't know the consequences of her actions, he was certain of one thing. Whether Aiko liked it or not, all the pirates acknowledged her existence, bringing her one step closer to making the entire Ford Federation submit under her rule. Lux sat cross-legged in the training room of Iris residence in Barbados Academy. Around him were countless elemental balls spinning in the air, sending out subtle fluctuations that contained the powers they held within. After spending a month consuming countless beast cores, the half-elf had gained countless skills in his arsenal. He really didn't have any time to train these skills in the past, so he decided to spend his time testing them in preparation for the future. The battle in the Divine Empire had taught him a lot, especially when he was faced with the combined attack of the 4 young Supremes and the Oracle of Light. Although he had numerous skills, they were still not enough to fight against the Pseudo-Supremes. Hirswith had told him that there was nothing that he could have done to change the outcome of the battle. Even if JP hadn't been hit by the Oracle's arrow of destruction, he was still fated to die before the battle was over. Lux understood this, but that didn't mean that he accepted it. GAP had gone to the Divine Empire to die, that much was true. However, he died protecting Lux because the half-elf wasn't strong enough, and this was something that the half-elf couldn't accept. The current Lux was confident that he would be able to stand toe-to-toe with Saints. He was also fairly confident that he would be able to fight against a Supreme, and even if he didn't win, he wouldn't lose either. But that battle depended on the condition that the Supreme didn't have any supporters to help him fight. His master, Hirswith, was a peak demigod and commanded the Skeleton Queen, who was just as powerful. Even so, she still decided to return to Memento Mori to discuss a few things with their members. Although the extremely beautiful elf didn't tell Lux about her plans, he could guess it. He was certain that his Grandmaster planned to join the search for the Stars of Calamity. There were 7 of these beasts, and according to Hirswith, 3 had already been found, and with that, only 4 remained to be sought. Hirswith's goal was to get one of them to further enhance her fighting power. Knowing this, Lux didn't plan on summoning Hirswith anytime soon. He wanted to rely on his current abilities to overcome the enemies who were threatening to kill him. The half-elf was perfectly safe in Solais because no one there had the ability to kill him. The handful of saints that were present in the Six Kingdoms were also on his side. Of course, he now had saints of his own, who were safely stored inside Blackfire. Simply put, as long as he wasn't facing a supreme or a demigod, Lux could walk unhindered in both Solais and Elysium. The spinning elemental balls in the air all moved to merge with each other, but the process wasn't easy. Beads of sweat formed on the half-elf's forehead as he carefully observed the delicate balance of the elemental powers that were merging with each other. A moment later, a loud explosion resounded within the academy, making Iris and Kai, who were having their afternoon tea, glance in Lux's direction. Both girls were also doing their best to increase their ranks. However, since their fiancé was in the academy, the two decided to take a break. Right now, Iris and Kai were almost C-rankers. After what happened to the Abyss, the two girls had become more serious about increasing their ranks, so that in the future, they would no longer be a burden to their lover. Just as the smoke cleared from the training ground, Iris and Kai noticed something different. A baby slime was now perched on top of Lux's head and was happily ruining her papa's hairstyle. Eiko! Iris immediately stood up and ran towards the baby slime, whom she hadn't seen for a while. Eiko, who saw her mama running towards her, opened her mouth and spat out Fei Fei, who rolled on the ground with a smile on her face. Wei! Fei Fei! Kai didn't hesitate to pick up her baby slime and give her a kiss. Iris did the same, and Eiko happily accepted her mama's kisses with a big smile on her face. Eiko, you're finally back, Lux said as he rearranged his hair that had been turned into a bird's nest. Are you done with your adventure? Eiko shook her head. No. Then why did you return? Lux asked. Key. Eiko replied as he looked at her papa expectantly. Key. Lux tilted his head in confusion. What key? El Dorado. Do you mean El Dorado? El Dorado. Iris giggled after hearing the silly exchange between the half-elf and the baby slime. Lux didn't know why Eiko was asking him for the key to El Dorado, but since the baby slime asked nicely, he didn't think much about it. Summoning the key, he handed it to Eiko, who unceremoniously swallowed it without a second thought. We return, Eiko declared. Fei Fei, let's go. Wait. Iris, who missed the baby slime very much, hugged Eiko close to her chest. Can you stay for a few more minutes? I really missed you. Kai felt the same and looked at her baby slime with pleading eyes. Eiko and Fei Fei were unable to resist Iris and Kai's gazes, so they nodded their heads and stayed for half an hour before disappearing from their sight. The baby slime had used her skill to instantly teleport to Lux's and Iris' location. However, in order to instantly return to her pirate ship, she had left 2 of her clones there, so she could swap places with them at any time. Entrance of the hidden domain in the 7 seas. Eiko raised the key of El Dorado, allowing a small gate to appear in front of her. Let's go, Eiko said as she jumped onto Avery's shoulder. Fei Fei also jumped onto Avery's shoulder. The golden slime's body was shuddering because she could already feel the countless treasures that were waiting for them inside the domain. Captain Jack Spawwow followed behind the skeleton pirate king with an expectant look in his gaze. He was the only one that Eiko had permitted to follow them inside the lost city of El Dorado. The rest of the pirates also wanted to explore the hidden domain, but they didn't have a key like Eiko's. The number of people that Eiko could bring inside the domain was very limited, so she only allowed Captain Jack Spawwow to join her. As for the rest, they could only wait for her return. Hey, do you really think that the one cheese is real? One of the pirates asked his friend. Of course it's real, a pirate wearing a red bandana replied. We are about to see history in the making. I can't wait to see the faces of those great families when Princess Eiko manages to inherit the Pirate King's legacy. This was the thought of every pirate on the scene. They had long wanted to have someone to lead them, but everyone was too prideful to acknowledge anyone to order them around. However, Eiko was different. After witnessing how her subordinate defeated Admiral Onyx and made the fleet of the Ford Federation submit to her, the opinions of the pirates of the Seven Seas changed completely. Now that a true leader had appeared in front of them, they felt that following her would lead them to greater heights. Although Eiko was still young, they believed that she had what it took to unite all pirates under one banner and change the system of the Ford Federation for the better.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.